Okay, so I've got everything lined up and clamped together here, and you can see it's given it kind of a curve to the wood here. If you look closely, and you can see that it's sort of separated here. So I'm going to put clamps all the way around the edges here, but it's sort of going to give it a curve like a drum ring naturally would have, and once that glue sets, it'll hold that curve. So I'm going to put the clamps on the rest of this, and we'll be done with this for the day. It'll have to set overnight. Okay, here's my final gluing, clamping setup. Got the pedal clamp in the middle, putting that arc in there. I've got these clamps all tying everything together in the corners. The one in the center ties into, and the two on the end tie into this piece of wood on the bottom, and that keeps this edge from bending in the middle. When I first clamped it in there and clamped everything together, this middle bottom part here was bending right where that space is. So I put this board across the bottom, little piece of wood, and clamped it in on both ends and the middle, and that'll keep this section right down here straight and allow that to be curved to accept our clamp. And then we'll once this is dried, then we mark it up, drill it out, and attach it to our suitcase. So last night we glued our cleat together. You see this edge stayed nice and straight because we clamped that board on the bottom. And on the other side, we have a nice dip, a little curve in there for our drum pedal to clamp onto securely. Works much better than if you have a flat piece. And because you got the two thin layers glued together, it's going to maintain that shape. On the top, you can see I've got this marked out here. I'm going to do a few more modifications. I've marked the center spot for where our pedal clamps on. I've made a couple arcs here. And to draw these curves, all I did was, this was just like a lid from a container. This was a garbage can cover, just to get that arc. Just find something the appropriate size, something that'll work out for you. This here marks the center for where the clamp is, and the outside edges is where the outside edges of the beater line up. So I've also made some marks on here. I'm going to drill some holes. Okay, and these are going to be the holes that are going to have bolts that attach it to the suitcase. And the other thing I've got here is I've got this piece, this small piece of Luan. It's just another piece of this scrap material that I had laying around. I've cut it to a width of 3.5 inches, which works out really well for this suitcase. And this is going to go on the inside. So basically your suitcase will be sandwiched in between this piece and that piece. And what I'll do is I'm going to clamp these together. This one will go underneath here, and I'll clamp them together so that when I drill my holes in here and here and here and here and here, it'll be exactly lined up on that other piece of wood, so that our bolts will go straight through without having to have any modifications. So this arc that I've drawn out here, I'm just going to cut that off with a scroll saw just to kind of smooth it out so you don't have any sharp corners sticking out to bang your shins or whatever when you're carrying your suitcase or catch it on something and ruin anything. So we'll make those modifications. I'll get back to you and show you what our finished product looks like. Alright, here we have it, our finished product. That's our cleat. You can see I drilled the holes. I've got my backing plate with the matching holes. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this onto the case where it's going to be, to where it will normally be attached. And I'll drill the holes with my hand drill into the suitcase. And then I'm going to bolt them all together with, I'm going to use 1/4 20 carriage bolts. You don't have to use that size. It seems to be big enough without being too big to have to drill too big a hole. So 1/4 20 seems to work out pretty well. Alright, so yeah, I cut off those corners. Then I just took a piece of coarse sandpaper, kind of rough, sanded off the rough edges. And now we'll go ahead and make our holes in the case, and then we'll bolt her on, and we'll have suitcase drum almost built. Okay, so I'm going to hold my cleat in place here. I've got it positioned where it's going to mount, and I'm going to use this cleat as a template for drilling my 5 holes into the suitcase to make sure that they line up. Okay, here's our cleat installed on the bottom of our suitcase. That's where we're going to clamp our pedal. Inside, you can see here how I've got the this one reinforcing piece in here, 5 bolts going through. I got big fender washers on there, and I use stop nuts so that they wouldn't back out on me. Here's the bottom side of the suitcase, so you can see what it looks like, just like that. Okay, and so our next step with this is the bolts are a little long. I don't want them scratching stuff up, so I'm going to cut those off, and so that they're not sticking out quite so far.